Hello. We're going to get started on a little bit of a program. If you could all kind of look in my direction, grab a drink, get settled. We have a little bit of a presentation. Wonderful. And if there's anyone outside, please let them know we're starting. Hi, everyone. My name is Jennifer Scott. I am the Director and Chief Curator here at Jane Addams Hull-House Museum. I want to welcome all of you. Thank you for coming. I'm sorry we can't open the museum tonight. We are in the middle of a de-install for our next exhibition. But you are in a building that's one of the two remaining historically landmarked buildings of what was originally the Hull-House settlement right here on this site. From about 130 years ago, begun by Jane Addams and Ellen Gates Starr and other social reformers who moved to this area to try to create social change and improve the lives of their immigrant neighbors. How many of you have been here before? Yay! So please, those of you who haven't, come and visit us, and those who have, come back. We'll be having new exhibitions in the fall. One of the things that surprises people about Hull-House is not that it was this sort of innovative place of offering social services and a center of advocacy, but actually one of the first buildings they built of the 13 buildings was an art gallery. They had extensive arts and cultural programs here, including a 300-seat theater. So we've been trying to revitalize that area of our mission and bring out those arts focuses, which includes this program tonight. In 1906, they started an amateur group called the Hull-House Players. Neva Boyd, Viola Spolin, Paul Sills were all here at Hull-House and a big part of that legacy. Tonight, if you look around, we pulled out some historic photographs just for tonight and some text of that period of Hull-House and how to see how vibrant the theater scene was. So, of course, this is the perfect place for this book launch tonight. We have a lot of people to thank. Oh, I should also say, it's also part of our participatory arts crafting social change exhibition, which we just recently closed. That was part of our Art Design Chicago initiative, a citywide initiative. And that also included something that we started this summer called the Hull-House Summer of Theater, where we were featuring every week improv and theater professionals here in our courtyard and open rehearsals and workshops. So we have a lot of people to thank. First of all, I want to thank the author, Mark Larson, for trusting us for this, hosting this very special night. Mark was here at the beginning of our Hull-House Summer of Theater as an MC for our special first ever tribute to Viola Spolin and Paul Sills we had here on site. I also want to thank our partner, Seminary Co-op Books in the back, who you can purchase the book. Thank you. Our photographer, Brandon Fields, who's probably doing his thing and hiding, so smile if he points the camera at you. Our videographer, Tito, thank you very much. DJ Sadie Woods, who always plays the best music. I want to thank, they couldn't be present tonight, but the Department of Cultural Affairs and Special Events, City of Chicago, are hosting something called the Year of Theater, which this is a part of, so we're really grateful for their support. Of course, we want to thank Agate Publishing as well. Yes. And last but not least, the wonderful Hull-House staff who work so hard and are scattered throughout to make this happen. Thank you all for coming, and now I hand it over to Doug Seibert.
Hi, I'm here to speak very briefly at Mark's request, and ideally make everybody else on the program look better with what you're gonna hear here. I want to hit that note a little bit harder about the back corner. We have some folks here from an institution that is probably one of the 4 or 5 best independent bookstores in the country, and thus, a very important part of the literary ecosystem that keeps independent presses like Agate and books like Ensemble sort of flowing freely through our whole system. These folks are here tonight, I want to stress, in the hopes that some of you may actually purchase a copy of the book, which is the occasion for our gathering. So, yeah. Yeah, the publisher, the business guy. So, in my completely objective point of view, this is a remarkable work. I think that Mark first sort of came to me with the idea or the germ for the book that became Ensemble about 5 years ago. And I have to say, as sort of a literary publishing person here in Chicago, I've always felt a little bit of an envy for the theater scene and the theater community here, because in a very basic way, I think in the same way that it thinks of itself sort of as an architecture town and as a business town, as a working town, Chicago thinks of itself and understands itself as a theater town in a way that is really sort of, distinctive and unique. And I was really intrigued by the idea to be involved in a project that was really going to attempt sort of something that I don't think has ever been done before, which is really to capture the entirety of the circumstances that created, the institution that we know now as Chicago Theater. Over the course of working with Mark, I think I've come to look at this community and this scene as just this incredibly powerful engine, which not only continues to sort of work, for the sake of our own city, our own community here, but not incidentally sort of throws out this phenomenal quantity of energy, throughout our entire country, throughout our entire sort of entertainment ecosystem, in a way that I think, after working on this project with Mark all these years, is pretty much unmatched. So thank you very much for coming, and I'm going to shuffle off now.
Hi, everybody. Thanks for coming. My name is Tim Evans, and I wrote a few notes so I don't stray from what I wanted to say. I've spent more than 40 years in Chicago theater, mostly at Steppenwolf and St. Nicholas, and now at Northlight Theater, where I'm executive director. And it's my privilege to introduce Mark Larson tonight. Mark and I have been friends for over 40 years. I first met him right around the time he wrote his first produced play at Victory Gardens, and since then we have spent our lives in pursuit of art and education. My arts career started in a church basement in Highland Park with the young Steppenwolf gang. I was their first business manager, unfortunately, and but they survived me, and I eventually moved them into the Jane Addams Hull-House at Broadway in Belmont, a place like this that is central to this amazing story of Chicago theater. When Mark first discussed this idea of this book over lunch in Evanston, I thought it was a great concept. Over the years, others had tried to capture the breadth of this artistic movement, and some succeeded somewhat, some did not. I went home after our lunch, and I said to my wife, Jane, Mark has a terrific idea for a book. I just don't know if he can pull it off. Well, you did, Mark. So as I read this exciting story of Chicago theater, I was struck by so many things, mostly the honesty and accuracy of Mark's work. He's an extraordinary listener and chronicler. There are people in this book who speak about reasons that we all did and why we do this work. William H. Macy, a co-founder of St. Nicholas Theater, says in the book, David Mamet likened the theater to a church, a place where we meet finally to hear the truth. And Jeff Ortman, the executive director of Wisdom Bridge, says, speaking of the early days of the off-loop theater movement, we were given the keys to the land of Oz. We were taught that anything was possible. You could be anything you wanted to be. We had a lot of chutzpah, and we were dumb enough not to know that certain things weren't really possible. And I would say that that kind of attitude and assumption is the key to what shaped Chicago theater. On reflection, what struck me most about Mark's book was how he gets us to describe how innocent we were. It's not that we wanted to change the world through our theater work, although we did to a degree. It's that because we all felt we were outsiders and misfits, we wanted to find a community of our own. In the early days, Chicago theater was, I think, the island for lost boys and girls. And we all swam to it to see if we could find ourselves. And on our way to finding ourselves, we found a community, an ensemble of artists and enablers and friends and mentors, and we became a tribe, we became a family. Ensemble is a beautiful book, Mark. And if you love Chicago, this is an important book. If you love theater, this is an essential book. And if you love Chicago theater, it's a mandatory book. Not only is it oral history at the highest level, I think it's a love story. With all the passion, affection, heartbreak, struggle, failure, and triumph of any powerful love story. And like great oral historians such as Studs Terkel and George Plimpton, Mark Larson has captured something that has been elusive for a long time. A compelling, authentic, and emotional narrative told by those who lived it, those who changed the face of modern-day Chicago and the American theater. Please welcome my friend, Mark Larson.
The reason I keep coming back to you is because I think this
I'm
is...
the last man standing.
Yeah. And that who's still here in Chicago, too.
Yeah.
It's just, well, okay, one more quote. This is Bill Williams. But I said, when I sit down, this is me, when I sit down to talk to Joyce Piven, and then he interrupted me, and he said, that's the lifetime. That is the whole lifetime of Chicago theater.
Wow. That's the lifetime.
Because if you think about before playwrights,
There was nothing.
there was nothing.
There was a couple.
Mm-hmm.
I heard about them, but again, I was young. I didn't want to hear about that. We were creating a new theater. We wanted to be original and revolutionary. And that's what I think it was. But I think that's why people in theater don't want to look back. I had been reaching a time in my life where my feeling was, when I'm gone, there are going to be a lot of memorials. And I'm here now.
Yes.
You know, it was, I had a what's it all for moment. What's it all for? You know.
How do you...
And I'm not sure what it is I want. I just want, I would like for people in the theater to acknowledge their roots.
That's Joyce Piven. And I wanted her to have the first voice. The reason is this. Of all of the artists that I talk to, and I talk to a lot, of all the artists I talk to, especially of those who stayed in Chicago, her career span exceeds all of them except Sheldon Patinkin, who sadly died in 2014. It begins 66 years ago in 1953 with the Playwrights Theater Club, which you saw a photograph of there earlier, which I consider the beginning of the Chicago theater movement that we know today. And it's what this book is about. The Playwrights Theater Company, which was assembled by Paul Sills at the University of Chicago because there was no theater department at the University of Chicago. And it kind of instilled this sense in Chicago, I think, at that time, that there's no theater company, screw it, we'll create our own. We'll do it ourselves, we'll create our own theater company. And that's what they did. And in that incredible moment at the University of Chicago, that incredible moment, 1953, these were the people that Paul Sills gathered. Listen to these names. Byrne Piven, who Joyce later married, not very long after that, actually. Josephine and Rolf Forsberg, who I'll say something about in a moment. Ed Asner, you may have heard him. Fritz Weaver, the motion picture actor. Barbara Harris, Mike Nichols, Elaine May. 1953 in Chicago. That's what started this whole thing. And as Joyce said, before that, there really wasn't anything going on. Another, except the touring companies and so forth. Another reason I wanted to start with Joyce is this. When I met with her at her home in Evanston the first time, I met with her a number of times, she said, I'm so afraid that people are going to forget this history. They think that our history starts with Second City. That's when we started doing videotape. People started doing videotape. But I keep getting mail. Sorry about that. In case you wondered what that was. Somebody tell me where I was. Oh, thank you. The first time I talked to Joyce, she told me about that thing with Second City. And I said, you know what? I would really like to capture your history. And she said, I'm so afraid it's going to get lost. And the book was originally supposed to begin in 1970s with Steppenwolf. But after I talked to Joyce, I knew immediately that we were going to go back to 1953. So thank you, Joyce Piven. I adore her. When Playwrights closed, after mounting some 24 productions in less than 2 years, you theater people imagine that, 24 productions in less than 2 years. After that closed, David Shepard came up with an idea with Paul Sills called the Compass Players. And some astonishing people came out of that. Some of them, Mike Nichols and Elaine May, started really working on the stuff that they became famous for. Shelley Berman joined that group too. That lasted less than 2 years, right? And then after that, Second City was formed by Paul Sills, Howard Alk, and Bernie Solins in 1959. And if you are a member of the Chicago theater community, these artists, I promise you, their sensibilities, that of Paul Sills and Viola Spolin and the people that I've mentioned, is deeply embedded in your DNA, whether you know it or not, whether you realize it or not. As I talk to people from this time all the way through to some of the youngest members of the theater company, you can tell that those seeds are still there. This is an astonishing place, people. It's an astonishing place. I've always believed that if we're looking for a reason why we are on this earth, it has to be to help each other grow. It has to be to help each other grow. What happened? My disk is almost full. I hope you're enjoying being brought into the private life of my laptop. I hope that's all that appears. I've always believed that, though. I've always believed that our purpose is to help each other grow. And when I talk to the Chicago theater community, here's my sense. I can't imagine an artistic community who gets that better. They're always there to help each other grow. And I believe that your work, that the work of the Chicago theater community is so uncommonly vital, so original, so adventurous and influential, it's because of that commitment. It comes out of that commitment. And you guys, we could trace that ethos to this very block. To this very block. It was at Jane Addams Hull-House Theater, or Hull-House, that Paul Stills' mother, Viola Spolin, an author of the groundbreaking book, Improvisation for the Theater, met and studied with Neva Boyd, and from whom she learned about the extraordinary power of games and play. Spolin's application of those games to theater training became her life's work, and would have, and continues to have, an enormous and far-reaching impact on the theater. And by the way, I hope she won't mind, Paul and Carol Stills' daughter, one of them, and Viola Spolin's granddaughter, and an artist in her own right, is in the room with us tonight. Her name is Eva Sills. There's a picture of her namesake in the back there. There's a picture of Neva Boyd. Pardon me for that. That caught me unawares. So it is eminently fitting. It is eminently fitting that we launched this book here at the Jane Addams Hull-House Museum. For that, I have to thank Jennifer Scott and Ross Jordan, my new friends, and the entire astonishing staff here that put so much work into this. Look at the freaking detail of this. Did you notice the balloons match the cover of the book? Yes, I did. Doug did. That's what they're like, and I can't thank you enough. I'm just so honored to be in this room. And you guys, to see that stack of books in this room and on this block means a tremendous amount to me. Thank you. I really appreciate it. In talking to me about the Chicago theater community and its audience, Chris Henderson, who's the executive director of Chicago Shakespeare Theater and has been for a number of years, he told me something very early in this process that just really hung with me. He said, it's like, when he's talking about the theater community, he said, it's like we're building this together. It's like we're making this together. That principle, I think, binds and sustains your community. It binds and sustains your community. So I titled the book Ensemble for that reason. Not just because Chicago is known for our ensembles, Steppenwolf, Red Orchid Theater, Congo Square, just to name just a few, but because I often heard theater makers refer to this community as a single great ensemble, some would use those words, or a large repertory company, or an ecosystem. The focus is on the work itself, much more so than on individual accomplishment, and that's its power. Individual accomplishment may result, and often does, but it often comes from the skills and the instinct of contributing selflessly to the whole. The artists who have founded and work in these theaters, I think, take enormous pride in the sense of community they have built here, and well they should. So inspired by that culture, I approached this book in the same spirit. As I worked on it, I often shared its progress on social media, and you were right there. You really were. It was incredible. Responding with stories of your own, with photographs, with articles, with private letters. It just kept coming, and it kept coming. And true to form, we made this book together. We wrote this book together, which was my intention. And I can't thank you enough for that. This is where I'm going to probably cry. It's just who I am. So I'm trying not to apologize for it. It's just freaking who I am. Wish me well. It's time now, though, to thank the members of Ensemble's Ensemble. And it has to start. Whoops. Whoop, whoop. what I'm thinking is that might help me emotionally. I don't know why you keep disappearing, honey, but there you go. That's, oh, did I lose it? What did I do? Is it back? No, that's not it. Okay, I see it. Should I hold it up? Are there tech folks around? Is there a doctor in the house? There is. There is. You're going to love it when you see it. You know, I'm so pleased, though, because my sentimental moment has been broken. And there, Mary Larson. That's not what it's supposed to look like, but isn't she gorgeous? I can't imagine anything more tedious, you guys, than living with some guy writing a long book. I couldn't do it. But she did so with such grace and continuing interest and this unwavering sense that, of course, this will be done. Of course you can do this, unlike what Tim thought. But, thank you, honey. I just can't thank you enough. Can somebody help me out? This is not how these are supposed to look. Aren't they cool? That's my daughter, Sarah, and she's here taking pictures right now. She took a lot of photographs for me of my interviews. Oh. You know what? I had a lot of tech difficulties with this, but this wasn't it. There! You guys are great. Thank you. Anyway, that's Sarah Larson, who's a photographer, and she took a lot of photographs at my interviews, which I'm delighted about because they're appearing now on television and in newspaper articles and stuff, and I'm very proud of you, hon. Thanks. That's her twin sister, Emily, our other daughter, and she gave us twin grandkids during the time that I was working on this, and then gave me a real sense of keeping things in perspective. So I thank her for that too. I also want to thank my parents because they have encouraged every single freaking. I'm sorry. Oh, that's all right. Yeah, I was supposed to. But I wanted to thank my parents, though, because they have encouraged every single interest I've ever had. And that fueled everything that followed, and I can't thank them enough for that. And it led to an admittedly eclectic career, but it turned out pretty well, so I really appreciate it. I also want to acknowledge my sister Jody, who during difficult times covered a lot of bases while I was in the Ensemble cave, so she needs to be acknowledged. And Tim Evans, God, I've known you so long. We've known each other before Steppenwolf started. And I can't thank you enough for that introduction. It was gorgeous. Thank you. Tim was one of the first people I turned to, actually, when I started this book, because I knew he was so connected to the theater community and so very well respected here. So I turned to Tim, and I really appreciate it. Thank you. The amazing, the astonishing Agate Publishing, my God, the stuff that they do there and the level of quality and their diligence is just, I think, unsurpassed. Doug Seibold is the president and publisher of Agate Publishing, but he's also the founder. And he was the first to dive into this incredible whale of a book that I gave him. And I don't know how you did that, but it must not have been pleasant. But Doug, seriously, your patience, your perseverance, your smarts, your taste, your generous guidance, your unshakable integrity, and your calm are recognized and deeply appreciated. Thank you so very much. As I was reading that list, I saw like a little thought bubble, like track changes. There's a little comment in the, and I saw like a little yellow track changes that said DS, Doug Seibel. Mark, is it possible to lose some of those nouns without losing your intent? Much recommended. But I wanted to share that thought with you because that's Doug. What I love is you got to lose some of those nouns. But I don't want to lose your intent. What a gift that is, huh? What a gift that is. So thank you. There's others at Agate. He has an incredible team there. Jessica Eslin and Helena Hunt. Jacqueline Jarek, who is here, the manager of publicity. She's here tonight. Morgan Crable, who designed the cover that inspired the balloons. James Harbeck did a yeoman's job of editing. He had to check, for you theater people, he had to check the spelling of theater for every company. And make sure it was... and that it hadn't changed. That happens too. It hadn't changed along the way. So I really appreciated his work. Also, our excellent publicists, Dana Kay, who's here, and Julia Borchards at Kay Publicity, is doing a fine job, and I appreciate it a lot. It's fun to work with you. That's Mandy Steiger. Stay back there. Mandy was my transcriptionist on earlier projects, but this one as well. And if you've ever tried to punctuate human speech, seriously, where does the sentence end when you're talking? She's incredible, and she looked everything up, and she's just done incredible work. But I also want to commend her, too, because she's Mandy Steiger to me, but her own readers know her as A.J. Steiger. Congratulations. After I had made this slide, I ran into Mandy. She's here, and she actually has 4 books now. So sorry about the last one. We'll get it into the next talk. I also want to acknowledge Brad Hall and Julia Louis-Dreyfus, who added, I think, a really sweet and generous contribution to this book. It was very kind of them, and I really appreciate it. So I wanted to acknowledge that as well. So I'm going to give you just a little sampling of some voices that I heard, okay? These are short. Alan Arkin, if you want to look at some history. Alan Arkin came to Chicago in 1960. He came at the invitation of Paul Sills, who wanted him to join the first cast of Second City. And I asked Alan how he looks back on his time here, and this is what he said.
One of the things I think about periodically, I think a lot of me maybe it would have been smarter had I stayed in Chicago, because exactly what you're talking about. There was a sense of us against the world, a sense of a family that was really genuine with when I was at Second City. And I've looked for that my entire career and found it maybe 6 or 8 times. But not nearly as much as I could have had I stayed there.
Back when I could sit in a movie and then watch it like 2 and 3 times because they wouldn't kick you out. Russians Are Coming is one of those. I just kept watching. There's something.
Yeah, well, the Russians Are Coming was an extension of Second City in a way, because Norman Jewison had a brilliant and very embracing philosophy of film. That everybody, it was a community project. We were all doing it for the same reason. It had enormously important social significance for us, for all of us. And so that had that had very much a sense of community that you're talking about that comes out of Chicago. And about a half a dozen movies over the years have had that sense of spirit, but not terribly much more than that.
Isn't that incredible? He's looking back on the year 1960. Remember what I said? It's in your roots. It's embedded in your DNA. That's Alan Arkin talking about those days, which I just found kind of breathtaking, actually. Another quick one for you. This is Laurie Metcalf. This is Laurie when she was in a show called The Glass Menagerie in 1978 in that basement that Tim was talking about, and people who were there remember it very, very vividly, and often still talk about it. Even those who never were there, there's a lot of. It really is one of those moments that everybody likes to say, "I was there." Trust me, I was there though. Mary and I were there. And I asked Laurie this question.
Were you using the term ensemble early on?
I think we did. I think very early on we just called ourselves Steppenwolf Theater Ensemble, maybe. I think we used it. If we didn't use it formally, it was always in our heads that what we did was as a group. Nobody thought, I'm going to use this as a platform for myself, you know?
Really?
Mm-mm.
It was really all about the group then?
It was about the work. It was about how are we going to make this the best thing possible. It was collaborative from the beginning. We wanted to make an impression not individually but as a group, and so we knew we had energy, we had passion, we had a shared sense of humor, and we wanted to we wanted the group to succeed.
I love that.
I do love that. I love that on a larger level too. I just love that commitment. I talked to a guy named Derrick Sanders. I don't know if you know him. Derrick Sanders and Reginald Nelson co-founded Congo Square in the 1990s. And when I talked to Derrick, we talked about the founding of Congo and all the stuff that I usually was gathering. And then he had a story that he was dying to tell. And you can tell just by his energy here that he's dying to tell this. But he thinks this epitomizes the Chicago theater spirit. And I'd like to share that with you.
Let me tell you a story. Can I tell you a real quick story about that?
Do.
So, we were doing Joe Turner's Come and Gone, right? And we did it with the Goodman, in co-production with the Goodman. At the time, we are in rehearsal. My executive director comes to me and says, we run out of money. Before we even hit tech. Like, this is maybe a week or so before we hit tech, right? And he said, I don't know how we're going to finish the set. I don't know how we're going to get this up. Then out of the blue, Amy Morton calls me and says, hey, Derrick, can you come down to Steppenwolf? I'm in rehearsal, but I would love for you I need to talk to you. And I love Amy. I love Amy Morton, right? And if Amy calls me, I'm going to come, you know? And I said, sure, Amy, I'll come down there and meet you. Sure. So I go down there. Amy comes down and says, hey, Derrick, you know, I was a part of a theater company called Remains. And we had always talked about, getting back together, and we just never did, but we kept our account open. And he was like, and we're looking around at the Chicago landscape, and companies we felt like symbolized the work that we did. And she handed me a check and said, we want you to have a piece of Remains. Right? I almost cried. That sent us over the top. I think it was like $10,000 or something like that. And that was just enough to get us through tech and to get us through one of our more amazing productions of our company's history, right? That to me symbolizes what Chicago community is really about.
Yeah.
To me, it's one of those things where a company like Remains can reach back to a company of color that they didn't know, they didn't even know they would know, you know? And she didn't know we needed it desperately. She didn't know any of that. And it was just one of those things that I'm deeply proud of. You know, it's just one of those moments that I go, that's why I'm at Chicago. That's why I did Chicago theater, you know, because of stuff like this.
Is that something? And it's the kind of story I heard over and over and over again. And I wanted to take this moment we lost Sam Roberson much too early. He was from Congo Square. He's a decent, wonderful, talented guy, and Sam is missed. I want to stress one last thing here. All of this is not to say that there isn't friction in the Chicago theater community. It's not like that. You probably thought it was. There is a lot of friction. There is. But there has to be, because without friction, nothing can move. Questions of gender, racial, and ability equity on Chicago stages, as well as parity of resource allocation and who gets the attention they need and deserve, and are persistently and vociferously discussed and debated and argued. It gets messy. It gets fractious and divisive, sure. But I have sensed an underlying, abiding belief that this is the work and the commitment of a community constantly struggling to improve rather than to tear its fucking self apart. And those are necessary battles. And in these times, my friends, that commitment gives me great hope. And that's part of what I was picking up in these 4.5 years. Geez, you work hard. My God, you work hard. You work hard to make it better. The great playwright, I've really become fond of this gentleman, Ike Holder, put it this way.
I think the city knows it's a work in progress, and I think that's exciting, whereas some cities think that they are all the way there and nothing can take them down, whereas Chicago is always, I think, cautiously moving towards progress and falling down sometimes, but the idea of we're not at the end point is important, I think. But that's, I think that's what the best cities are. They're always changing and hopefully trying to get better. But yeah, it has a feel of like, okay, cool. So we're all doing this, right? Instead of like, it's done. And everything's great. Everything's not great.
Everything's not great. We know that. Everything's not great. But that's why people keep at it. That's why they keep at it, and that's what I saw a lot of. Jane Nicole Brooks is one of my favorite actors. She told me a great story, and I do have to share this with you. She became the first African-American ensemble member of Looking Glass Theater, and that was in 2007. That fact is noted in a timeline in Harvey Young's wonderful book, Black Theater is Black Life. And it's in a timeline. And I showed that to Nicole. Can you see? Up at the top, there's Derrick Sanders and Reginald Nelson, 1999. 2007, Jane Nicole Brooks, playwright and director, becomes the first Black ensemble member of Looking Glass Theater. And I called this to her attention, and this was her reaction.
Holy shit, that is true. Hey, I'm not mad about it. Thank God, not the only. Thank God. I'm the only Black female, but there are other people of color in the company, and increasingly we need that to be the case, to have way, way more, but I didn't even think about it that way. That's so interesting.
So can you tell me the story of when they offered you the ensemble?
Oh my God. I remember it like yesterday. I had written a play called Black Diamond, The Years the Locusts Have Eaten. It premiered in April of 2007. Fast forward to Black Diamond opens, And there's this fancy gala that they have every year. They invited me to it. And they're like, Nikki, what time are you coming to the gala? Okay, I'll be there at 6:30. Make sure you're there. Make sure you're there. So I get to the Peninsula Hotel. It's all fancy to do. And they're like, hey, Nikki, come on out. I was like one person, I want to talk to you on the veranda outside. I'm like, sure. And I think it was Phil Smith. Phil leads me outside, and the entire ensemble is there. No one else is out on the veranda. All the fancy people are inside. And I'm like, hey, guys. All 21 of you. What is it?
They all started grinning.
Yes, they had this, everybody, they all had swallowed a canary. They were just...
They still had.
Yeah. They're all sitting there, standing there with these shit-eating grins. And Catlin, who was artistic director at that point, said, we would like to invite you to become an ensemble member. And I was a hot mess from that point on. I wept. I openly wept. I laughed. I thought no, my God, are you kidding me? No, there's no way. I thought I already, for me, I won. I got to develop and create a play. Then it happened to get produced. Then it happened to do really well. And I don't mean well in the numbers and critics. Who cares about all that? It did well because they had never had that many Black people on their stage ever. Let me just go ahead and be blunt and say about it.
What a moment.
It blew my mind. And they were and they just embraced me. And it's been a love affair since. I love every single one of them. I really do. So that's how I became an ensemble member.
Be sure to check that out, by the way. 2020. And for Nicole and Looking Glass's sake, too, she's done a lot more than just those two. I just want to crowd it up, but she's done a lot of work, and she's just an extraordinary actor. If you saw Lottery Day, she had the lead in Lottery Day and knocked me out. Absolutely knocked me out. I adore that one. Here's the very last thing. The other theme that I found very fascinating is how the younger generation treats the older generation treats the younger generation. The way they enfold them and bring them forward, and how generous they are about that. That Amy Morton story is just one example of that. I heard dozens and dozens, and there are many of them in the book. And so we'll end where we began, with your roots, with an intergenerational story. This is Jen Green, who is the first to take up the mantle from Joyce Piven as artistic director of, see what Joyce does? Of the Piven Theater Workshop. And I asked them, could you tell me what each of you has learned from the other? And this is how they responded.
Joyce taught me how to live a life in the theater. Joyce taught me something about the long haul of the theater. Yeah. And how obligated we are to the next generation, and how obligated we are to create something beautiful while we're here. I would be very lucky, right, if I could do what we did. Yes. I would be very lucky. Me too. Yeah. For whatever reason, what you saw could bring this work to the next generation. And I hope that I have the same presence of mind and the same openness and the same ability to receive, to see that next person.
I think I've learned a different kind of patience from Jennifer. Jen always, in a funny way, brings me back to the work. I want to get there, wherever there is. We can only aspire.
Thank you all so very much for being here. Thank you, Agate. Thank you, Hull-House. Thank you. Sorry about all the tech stuff. Wait, is this off? Oh, it sounded suddenly quieter. Well, what do you want to do? It's been long. I mean, with all the technical difficulties. Does anybody have a question? Maybe I want people to be comfortable. Neva Sills, would you raise your hand? That's Neva Sills. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mark. We are going to have book signing up here in the front. So those of you who haven't purchased yet, you can purchase in the back. We can start lining up. We're going to pull out a table. So thank you all.